Alright, everybody, bear with me. This is like the fourth or fifth time I've tried to make this video. Not just the intro, but literally from the ground up. But I think I finally got it. Let's get right into it. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Recreating John Frusciante's Tone. Today I'm going to do another song off the By the Way album called The Zephyr Song for this week's episode. Now, it's been about a month since I posted my last video, which I highly recommend everybody watches because I pretty much use the same settings on my amplifiers, my recording gear, the same mics. I don't believe I moved anything on my EQ for my preamps, and I won't go into too much detail in my signal chain because I already covered that in my last video. So if you're more interested in a more detailed description of why I use the specific gear that I'm using, go back and watch my last video. I'll leave a link in the description down below, and you can either watch it before and after. It doesn't really matter. Just know that pretty much everything's going to be the same, except for a couple pedals that I add, but I'll get into that later. Alright guys, so it's taken me a while to get this video out. I've been really busy with work, maintaining the studio. I just got back an amplifier that I had to take in because it was picking up a lot of weird noises. Still had the original electrolytic caps, and those need to be changed because my super lead is from 1975, and usually caps go bad within like 10-15 years. So the fact that I got it and it still had the original ones, that's wild. And that costs a lot of money. Like, I had to put new tubes in, get the electrolytics changed, a couple diodes blew up in it. Like, it was a mess. So I had to pick up a couple of extra shifts to pay for that. One of my warm audio compressors, when I got it, the UV bulb was blown. So I went on Etsy, found like some sort of LCD replacement bulb, which works really, really well actually. It's probably 2 to 3 times as bright as the original. And here's the moment of truth. Oh my god, it's really bright. It's brighter than the old one. And I only did that because Warm Audio's website was sold out of the original ones. So if you have a Warm Audio unit that isn't lighting up, highly recommend it. I'll put a link in the description down below. Not affiliated at all, but you'll be glad that you did. Alright, so this song isn't very difficult to play, right? It's got very simple melodies, easy chord progressions, and only 2 effects that I can think of that he's using for sure. One of those effects is going to be a reverb that's going to be turned on the entire time. And I started out with a electro-harmonix Holy Grail because it's on John Frusciante's board pretty much from the By the Way era all the way up until the Stadium Arcadium era. And for the solo, it's pretty simple, right? All you need is some sort of like a boost because it's not heavily distorted like a DS2 or a Big Muff. So I decided to use a MXR microamp because it's nice and clean. It drives the amps a little bit more. So I'm pretty sure this is what he used for the solo. And while I was fixing the Warm Audio compressors, I was listening to the Slain Castle performance, specifically the Zephyr Song, and then something like popped up on my phone where it was John Frusciante laying down on the ground next to his pedal board, and on the pedal board you can see to his left this weird giant brown box that was a Fender Reverb unit in conjunction with a electro-harmonix Holy Grail. Now I've had the Holy Grail, and I believe it's the first pedal I ever bought off Reverb. And I was trying to get this tone from this song, right? And I figured it had to be the Holy Grail because it's been on his board forever. And I was trying to find research on why John was using, specifically for the Slain Castle tour, a Fender Reverb unit. The only thing I could think of was because he wanted to get as accurate to the studio version when he performed live for that show because it was going to be recorded. It was going to be made into a DVD. It did very well. I think he wanted to be extra special about it in terms for that show. So when I'm trying to recreate a song, if I can't find it on the internet, I like to reference the book by somebody who really inspires me, Mr. Kintaro Sensei. I like to look at the book Heart. I don't know how to describe this book, guys. All I know is it's a beautiful love letter to John Frusciante fans and to John himself. It is a very useful book and has beautiful descriptions on everything that John Frusciante has been speculated to have used or has used in the studio while he was in the Chili Peppers. I don't remember where I read this, but I believe Mr. Quintero said that he spent about 15 years gathering equipment, instruments, effects, just to get John Frusciante's sound. I don't believe there's anybody on the planet who's spent more time, money, and has been that dedicated to finding a tone more than this man. And he was very generous to spend time to write it all down and share it with everybody. I remember watching one of his first videos when he covered Danny California, and he had this massive pedal board. It was pretty much a pedal board inspired by the Stadium Arcadium era. I think I had like 2 or 3 pedals at the time. I'm pretty sure I only stumbled onto his channel because of the algorithm suggested it while I was probably looking up tabs for Danny California at the time. And on the screen he put what pedals he was using when he activated them. And when he threw on the Mooger Fooger pedals, like, I lost my shit. I thought it was so cool how close he got in his house to the studio recording. And I thought, man, I gotta start buying everything on that pedal board. And then years went by and he released this book, and it has everything a John Frusciante fan would want. And the presentation he puts in this was just beautiful. Each cover is hand painted. There are 2 books in the set. The main one is pretty much a showcase of all of John's gear, a little review that he does for it, and the pictures in it are beautiful. The second book is more of a analysis that he's done personally for every record, each song, and some pages are dedicated to some of the live show performances. For example, the Slane Castle show. And so then I looked at the Zephyr pages, which he states that he believes for the Zephyr Song, John used a Fender Reverb unit. And so I had to find out for myself if that was true or not. And so because I was working a lot, my birthday just passed, I was able to save up enough money to purchase my very own Fender Reverb tank from 1963. And a week later, when it showed up to my doorstep, I went to work, went back home, took it to the studio, unboxed it, plugged it in, and the first thing I played was the Zephyr Song. And here's what I got. And then there was the sound I was like looking for. Like, I'm not saying that the Holy Grail is a bad pedal at all and that you can't get really good tones out of it. Like, far from it. Like, I own 3 of them. I have 2 of the pointy knob versions and a hockey puck one. Like, I'll be the first to say it, it's better than the freaking Fender Reverb tank. Probably why John stopped using the Fender and kept the Holy Grail. But like Quintero said in his book, I don't believe that John used the Holy Grail. I think that in the studio, Jim Scott might have had one of these laying around, and John must have used it during those recording sessions at some point, really liked it, and decided to use it for the album. And so I had to find out for myself which one I liked better. I really hated having to unplug one and plug back one in, unplug back in. It was getting real annoying. So after I built my amp shelf, I had a nice piece of red oak laying around. I bought myself a JHS switchback with the remote, drilled some holes, routed it out, built my own AB pedal board using the JHS switchback as the heart and the controller of this thing. I even routed out some inputs and outputs. The back looks gross, but it gets the job done. Looks nice when you're not looking at it from the back. It's all smoke and mirrors, guys. This whole thing, smoke and mirrors. And I built this because I wanted to quickly on the fly look at the differences between the Fender Reverb unit and the Holy Grail. But I know that this thing will pay for itself when I do more recreation videos for you guys, so you can also see visually and hear sonically the differences between certain pedals. In fact, let me show you right now how this thing works. Alright, so like I said earlier, I introduced a couple new pedals into the signal chain. So just to quickly recap, we're going to start from my guitar. It's going to go straight into a Boss DS2, into the MXR microamp. That's going to go into a WH10, and that'll go into a Boss CE1 pedal. And then we're going to be running in stereo. The left side is going to go into the Marshall Major, and the right side of the CE1 is going to go into the JHS switchback, and then the signal is going to go into the Fender Showman. Alright guys, so this is the AB board that I was talking about earlier. Now this is just my clean sound. Now I am running this in stereo, so this is my Marshall major. And this is the Fender Showman. And this is them together being panned left and right. And the first loop is going to go to the right side to the Holy Grail. And the second loop is going to go into the Fender Reverb unit. So when it's green, Holy Grail, red, Reverb tank. And this is my clean signal again with no reverb. With the Holy Grail. This is pretty much how John Frusciante has it set up, a little bit past noon, maybe 1 o'clock-ish. It's a really nice, lush reverb. It's a little darker, honestly, than the Fender Reverb unit. So this is how I like to have the Fender Reverb unit set up. The dual's at about 4, the mixer's at 3, the tone's at about 4, 4.5. Now the Holy Grail sounds a lot thicker. And there's a lot more reverb, at least the duration of it. Especially on tap. If I max this thing out, like, it lasts a very long time compared to the Fender Reverb unit. The thing about the Fender, when you max out the reverb, you get that more pronounced, watery effect. Compared to the Holy Grail. And the Fender Reverb has a more wet sound. Now I could kind of get that when I turn down the tone knob. It gets a little bit more darker, but not as dark as the Holy Grail, sorry. But the Holy Grail isn't too dark. And the Fender can get really bright. Like when the tone knob is turned all the way down, it feels a lot like the Holy Grail. But even when the Holy Grail isn't maxed out, it still has more reverb than the Fender, which is not a bad thing. They both sound great. Now for the solo part, I use a MXR microamp just to drive the amps a little bit. So this is with the MXR without any reverb. Like, I know it's not 100% of the way there. I think I could get closer with either some sort of different pickup, maybe changing the placements of my speakers. Maybe it's the EQ that I'm doing with my Warm Audio 273 EQs. And to be honest, like, I don't know what I'm doing when it comes to tracking, because there are so many videos on how to record a guitar, but they're not very good, and it's hard to get a grasp on what frequencies you should be looking for. But I'm trying my best not to like do any post editing, not because I feel like that's cheating, but it just doesn't really connect with me. I want to get it straight out of the equipment that I have, because I want to learn and teach myself more on how to do it, because I think it's really fun. And I feel like I've barely scratched the surface. Like, there's a lot of information out there, but at the same time, it's a lot easier for me to just mess with things and see what I like, see what I don't like. And I think right now I found a really good balance. I'm not sure which video I'm going to do next. I'm probably going to do another song off the By the Way album. I'm very sorry. But for now, guys, thank you so much for your patience. Right now, it's still busy at work. It's kind of hard to get out here sometimes. I am trying to figure out some power issues that I'm getting out of the wall. But I really do have fun making these videos for you guys. It's mostly for myself, honestly. I feel like I can't justify owning all this if I can't share all this information with you guys. So thank you again. Bear with me. But luckily, I don't have any distractions other than work for probably the rest of the summer. But thanks again for watching, guys. I hope you liked the video. Stay tuned for the next one. Let me know if you have any questions, comments. Put them down below. Like the video. Hit subscribe. Share the video. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.